Welcome to the Deal by Me podcast, where we ask guests to tell us your story. Story can be encouraging, inspiring, and very transforming. We want guests to share their experiences and events in their lives that can benefit someone else. We all have a story. We invite you to share your story with us at our website, dealbyme.com. And please leave us a comment or share this podcast. And if you viewed it on YouTube, we ask that you give us a comment and consider subscribing to our YouTube channel. This morning, today, we are happy to have Jeff Smith share with us his experiences and events that hopefully you will be benefited from. So just get ready for a truly inspirational, action-packed show where you're going to learn how Jeff failed math and English at high school, didn't attend university, and against all the odds, he went on to become the most successful author in history with a book about KPI, how on earth did that happen? And I want you to hear him today as he shares his story. Jeff, it's good to have you on a podcast today. And I want you to just introduce yourself briefly and just tell us where you're being interviewed from. And then we'll get into a good conversation that listeners of this podcast will be able to hear and know your story.
Okay, James, thank you very much for reaching out to me. I really do appreciate it. So it's the morning for you, it's the afternoon for me. So I'm in sunny England right now, as you can probably tell from my accent. So thank you for reaching out to me. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. So you've set me up now, right? So, so I've written a book. It's about key performance indicators. The fascinating thing about this is I'm officially on record as the most successful author in history on the subject of key performance indicators and business strategy. Now, I'm not saying this to impress you, but to impress upon you how someone can come from absolutely nothing and achieve something like this to make a difference to the world, which the book has done, for which I'm grateful. So let me just clear up the introduction and what it is that you said. So I did go to school, sure. I did not do well at school. Now, why? Let's understand why first. So I'm not a guy that's stupid in any way. I'm intelligent, but at school, I had no academic interest, no academic focus. I was just interested in music. That was it, James. That was it. And my parents were very loving. They're great parents, but they were not mentors. And whilst they say they were interested in what I was doing and what my future holds, yes, but I don't recall ever once showing them my homework or anything like that. So did I have to work hard? No, I was just allowed to amble along in life. Sadly, I did. However, in music, I didn't. In music, I worked really, really hard, and I was a keyboard player, and that's all I wanted to do, which is okay. But I wish I'd have had the academic focus. So what happened? I grew up, I went through school. I got average grades, but nothing outstanding at all. I left school and I became a mechanical and electrical engineer. I had an apprenticeship and then I had to start college. Then something happened. I got my academic focus at last. Because when I went to college, I could then relate my studies to what I was doing at work. Then the world made sense. And then, so I did well at school then. I went through college, but when I finished college, I was playing music for my parents' silver wedding anniversary, and I was a keyboard player. And I'd never played in public before, and my mom and dad had they'd rented a room for this special occasion and rented a band. And during the break, I went to the band and said, "When you come back, you're going to play the anniversary waltz for my parents." They said, "Yeah, sure." And I was 17, I think, at the time. And I said, "Is it okay if I play the music for them?" And James, then I was a really young looking 17 and I hadn't grown. I was still quite small. My voice hasn't broken. And this guy looks at me and he said, "You can play?" And I said, "Yeah, sure." He said, "What do you play?" And I said, "Keyboards." And he said, "Okay, I'll just check with the keyboard player to make sure he's okay for you to do that." So he said, "Yes, it's okay. So here's what's going to happen. Do you want the rest of the band on with you?" And I said, "No, no, just the drummer." He said, "Okay." So the band will go on stage. We'll call your mum and dad into the middle of the dance floor to call them for the anniversary waltz. And then we'll say, "But we're not going to play it. Jeff, your son, is going to play it." So then the band will walk off and then you walk on the stage and the drummer will stay there. And I said, "Okay." so, so that's what we did. So that's the first time I played on stage. So my mom and dad, of course, got very, very emotional. Everybody stood up and clapped. So, I mean, there's a few hundred people in the room as well. So I played the anniversary waltz for my mom and dad and some other things and got everyone dancing. The dance floor was full. We finished the number. I said, "Thank you very much." Exited, stage left. Then what happened? A guy came over to me and he said, "How old are you?" And I said, 17. He said, "You're a better keyboard player than the guy that's on stage right now." And I said, "Thank you very much." And he said, "Would you like to do some gigs?" And this is when my life changed because I was very happy being a mechanical engineer. The problem is there's no money. Now, let me put this into context. I'd not yet fully qualified, so I'm an apprentice, and then I'm earning about $10 a week. And this guy said, "Do you want some gigs playing keyboards?" I said, "No, I don't think so." And he said, "Okay, I'll give you 3 gigs per week. So you play perhaps a couple of hours a night, and I'll pay you $40 a night." I'm like, "What? I'm earning $10 a week. Now I'm being offered 3 gigs at $40 a night." Now, it didn't take me long to think about that. So that's what I did. So I became a professional musician. But then what happened, having enjoyed music up to this stage, and I loved it. Once I'd been a professional musician for a couple of years, I realized it wasn't for me. It wasn't my passion. I fell out of love with music. It became work. I didn't want to do it anymore. So I quit. And then I'm thinking, I don't know what I want to do. Now, at this point, I'd earned a lot of money as a musician. I was a very good musician, got paid very well. So I just stopped and I thought, what shall I do? I have no idea what I'm going to do. So I joined the automotive industry as a car salesman. Something to do, something to get by. Now, I'm now aged 23, but because I'd grown up pretty much on stage from 16, 17 years old then, I'd met lots of famous people, I met lots of rich people, and it grew me up really, really quickly. So when I was meeting with customers who wanted to buy cars, I was able to develop rapport very quickly, and I sold a lot of cars. What happened then, after a couple of years, I did so well, they promoted me to sales manager. So now I'm 25. I was a really good sales manager. I did really well. After a couple of years, I got promoted to general manager. So 27 years old, I'm the youngest general manager in the UK, and I'm running a Ford dealership. I then get promoted to run three dealerships, and I'm made a director of the board, operations director, and I then get promoted to run 10 dealerships. Now, here's where my world changed, because 10 dealerships were in different locations around the UK, miles apart. And I had to figure out a way how to understand how each of these businesses were working without being there myself. And this is where I developed key performance indicators. So within a car dealership, they're very complex, and you probably got 5 or 6 different businesses in one. And I had 10 of them. So I had 50 or 60 department managers, each of which had 50 or 60 people within them. So I'm looking after thousands of people and lots of activities, and I needed to know what was happening. I educated the team in key performance indicators. I thought everybody was using them, James, but in truth, no one was. So I developed this business strategy. I was director for a number of years, won all the awards, won everything, but no one knew why and how we were so successful. So then what happened? I was approached by a consultancy company to teach other people how to run car dealerships in the UK, which I did because that's what I loved more. It was bringing people on, not actually running the business itself, but teaching other people how to do their part within the running of that business. And when you do that, then everybody's moving in the same direction and doing well. That's what I enjoyed. So here I was being offered a job as a consultant to the automotive industry where I get to do that for a living. I mean, how cool was that? So I thought, okay, so that's what I did. I did that for 7 years. And then, so I'm now up to 39. So it takes me up to 1999. And now I have to set up my own company. Long story as to why I did. Maybe that's an interview for another day. But right now we're at 1999. It's November. It's coming up to the millennium. So 1st of January, the year 2000. It's poetic, right? It was just meant to be. So I set up the company, and that's when I had this idea to write this book about key performance indicators. Well, that's when I actually decided to write the book. And what had happened previously was that within this consultancy company, I went to one of the directors and I said, I have this idea for a book. It's about key performance indicators. I thought everybody was using them, all of them, and people understood them. It turns out that they don't. So people do use key performance indicators, but they were not using the ones that really made the difference to making the businesses work. And he said, okay, what would this book be like? And I said, it would be a reference book. So each page would hold the information for each key performance indicators, of which for a car dealership, there are about 250, 300 key performance indicators. And he said this, I don't think it's a very good idea. I don't think anybody would buy the book. It sounds boring. People don't want to know about key performance indicators. It will never sell. And you, Jeff, are not the person to write it. Okay, so James, how do you imagine I felt after receiving that from the director?
Jeff,
I think you're on mute.
I don't know what to say to you because your story is so interesting. But I do want to ask you this question as you move through this conversation. I was going to ask you what did that KPI stand for. Now I know it's key performance indicators, but you also talk about 11 steps of success. Is that in this book, the key performance
Well,
indicators?
what happened? Let me put all of this now into context. That's the backstory. So here I am with an idea for a book. I've never written a book, and here's my boss saying that book will never work. And Jeff, you're not the person to write it. So I had to deal with this one first, and this is the first lesson I really want to give to people listening. So here's what I did. I could have, and I think most people would have been extremely disappointed and would have taken that feedback from my directors extremely personally and probably would not have ventured with the book. Here's what I did. I came out of that meeting and it was my annual appraisal. So it didn't go great. So, excuse me. So, what happened is I came out and I thought, that's the first time this person has heard about this idea for the book. And if that was the first time I'd heard about it and that's all I'd known, then I probably would have had the same reaction that he did. The benefit that I have is that I know about key performance indicators and how powerful they are. He doesn't know. So, because he doesn't know, then I understand the answer that he's given. So, I completely reframed from what he had said to my own advantage. I had to do that, otherwise, I would be destroyed. So, okay, so I went to a few other people and they said similar things. So I said, okay, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to write the book anyway. So I'll come back to that point. Now let's talk about the 11 steps of success. When I was 18 and a professional musician, I got exposed to a guy who was incredibly wealthy, multi millionaire. So he had this wonderful mansion. He had a Porsche 911 and all of the stuff that I think, oh, wow, awesome. And I thought, how is it that this guy can amass so much wealth and money? And then my dad, who's a really clever guy, doesn't have any money. In fact, is embedded in debt. So, what's the difference between the two? So, what I did, because as a musician I was exposed to lots of famous people and rich people, I thought I'll find out. So, I interviewed them and found out what they did to become successful. And, James, here's what I found out all of them, whether they were consciously aware of it or not, had the same 11 steps in their life that took them to success. And after I interviewed 325 people, I, I formalized these 11 steps of success and then applied them to my own life. So when I decided to write the book, now I'm fast forwarding back into where I left the previous story. I've now decided to write the book. So I thought, now I'll apply these 11 steps to my own life. And in the next couple of years, the book outsold everything else. And that's when I became the most successful author in history. So it wasn't just an Amazon #1 bestseller, it still is the best selling book in the world on its subject matter and business strategy.
Hmm. What amazing story! It's just amazing. You have lived a working model of the formula for success, and I hear you talking about it, and it's really interesting. But can you share uh, some of these steps with us? I'm not asking you to share
Sure,
all,
sure.
share a couple of them with us.
Yeah, sure. So to do all 11 would take us a while because there'd be questions on each.
Yeah.
But where I am now in my life, I'm currently writing the book, The 11 Steps of Success. Whether it will be called that in the end, I'm not sure. I've not decided, but I'm now in the process of writing it. So it will be finished in your hands at the end of 2023.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so what's it all about? How does it work? Here's what I found out. Of these 11 steps, some people were consciously aware of the 11 steps, some were not, but they did them anyway. That's what's fascinating. The most important step, and here's the thing, about 97%, there's a key performance indicator. 97% of people are unable to complete step one. And if you can't do that, then you can't go on to step two, step three, four, and beyond. So the first step is most important of all. So, no need to ask me, James. You're going to say, hey, Jeff, what's step one, right?
Mhm.
So, step one is what you want. Most people don't know what they want. And all right, now let me put that into context. When I ask really successful people what they want, they're able to tell me, and they take their time telling me. When I meet someone who is perhaps not as successful as they like to be, I get answers like this. What do you want? More money. So, just to make the point, James, I say, okay, I put my hand in my pocket, I take out a dollar bill, and I give it to them. And I say, there you go. Your dreams are fulfilled. Do you have more money? And they say, hey, Jeff, you're kidding me, right? And I say, no. You asked for more money. You've got more money. The thing is, you were not at all specific. And the difference between successful people and those who are still trying, successful people are really specific. So, someone who's not yet successful would say, more money. Someone who's successful would say something like this: I want $1 million. I want that $1 million to be evident in my bank account in the form of cash, and I want it there by the 30th of March 2024. I'm prepared to work, I'm prepared to do it, and I'm going to keep watching my money grow. But on at lunchtime at 12 noon on the 30th of March 2024, I will have $1 million in my bank account. Now, that's the difference. Now, I've used money, but it could be anything that you want to achieve in your life. The difference is absolutely specificity and knowing what you want.
Well, Jeff, I'm hearing you well. Uh, my podcast is about encouraging, inspiring, and transforming. And so I want to just ask you something uh,
Sure.
that I think listeners of this podcast would appreciate. You are obviously very successful, most successful author in history. And so the question that I want to ask, excuse me, is this. If there were people listening to this podcast, and I do have different types of folks, but they're going through some difficulties, they have some challenges that they're facing, and they want to get ahead. They want to succeed. Some of them might want to even write a book, and I've written 3 books myself, and people ask me always for some tips. How do you write a book? So I guess my question to you is, what do you say to folk who are facing these kinds of challenges? They don't know even how to get started. They don't know the first step to take, and it may not even be that I want to be a millionaire. It may be that I just, like to do this or that, or like to feel this or that. What do you say to them?
Okay, I'm not sure what the question is there, really. However, what I think you're saying is if someone wants to get started, how do they get started?
Yeah, that would be a very succinct way to put it.
Yeah, yeah. Now, as I said before, 97% of people can't do step one. And that's because they don't know what they want. So the first thing you need to do, no matter where you are, whatever you're doing, you have to decide what it is that you want. Now, if you don't know what you want, how can you succeed at anything? It's a precursor. So let's pick something. Let's say a book. But this could be anything. We'll use a book as a metaphor because, James, you've written 3, I've written 7. There's probably somebody who wants to write a book. I've helped 34 people to write a book and get published. So, what's the difference then between someone who wants to write a book and it sells, and then someone who wants to write a book and it doesn't sell? How about we take that route? Because I've had lots of people say, okay, if I want to write a book, what I need to do is sit down and write. Not necessarily. Now that sounds crazy, right? So I'll give you my journey. This book that I wrote, I've written 7. I'm writing another one now. All of them are bestsellers. But when I'd written my first book, I had no idea how to write a book. So I think, okay, so I have this thought, I want to write a book. But I don't know how to write a book. I failed English at school, failed mathematics at school, and I want to write a book about mathematics. So I'm on the back foot already, okay? So what did I do? So I thought about these 11 steps of success and what successful people do and what is it they want. So then I thought, well, why do I want to write a book? Because nobody just wants to write a book. There's a reason for it. And for me, I wanted to write a book that would help people who are on the journey, the same journey as me, but I'm further along this road in running car dealerships and using key performance indicators to excel. Now, it's business strategy, whether you're into car dealerships or not, doesn't matter. Whether you want to write a book or not, doesn't matter. Understand this principle. So I thought, okay, step 1 then, I need a goal. And I need to write it down. So how did I go about that? So the reason for writing this book, I wanted to help people. So I thought, well, once it's written, I then need to be able to sell it. And here's the secret to my success, James. And it's not just with a book, it's with all of the things that I do. I created the advertisement for the book before I wrote a single word. I spent 3 months gaining clarity on this advertisement. I created it and I shared it with other people. I said, what do you think of this? And they said, oh, yeah, it's okay. So you're writing a book, Jeff? I said, yeah. So what's this book going to be about? So I'm thinking, okay, you've looked at the advert and now you're asking me what the book is about. So my advert's not good enough yet. I didn't get the impact when you saw the ad. And I'd got some interesting thoughts for the name of this book. Things like how to make more profit in less time, how to make more profit and keep it, and things like that. So I would then explain what this book is about, and I would listen with the intent of listening to what people were saying. And everybody was saying, oh, okay, so that will be a book about KPI. And I said, yeah. So they said, so it will be a KPI book. And I said, yeah. So I did not call it in the end. Everybody was saying the same thing. Oh, it will be a KPI book. So I did not call it How to Make More Profit and Keep It. I called it the KPI book.
That's it. I got you.
Yeah, so I listened to what people were saying. So it's called the KPI book. So I rewrote my advertisement many, many, many times, and I honed it and I honed it, and I kept showing it to people until the point where people would look at the advertisement and say, hey, that's good. When can I get a copy? Because what happened then, James? Here's the significant part between a successful project or not. It's when somebody wants what you want to create, even before you've created it. So in this case, a book. So showing the advertisement for the book, and people were saying, that looks awesome. Hey, Jeff, when can I get a copy? So what I decided to do then, I said, okay, now I know what people want. Now I will create the book that people want. So what I did, I kept the advertisement on my office wall, and I started writing. And I had to write it in a way that fulfilled the promise of the advertisement. So the advertisement was my guiding light.
Okay, Jeff, let me
Yeah,
kind of bring this to an end, but I want to ask you this. If someone is interested in your book or books, how would they be able to find it? Or if they're interested in talking to you, get all this good information from
sure.
you, would you share
Okay.
it with us for us, please?
Sure. Well, if you're in the automotive industry and you're interested in the books, because they're only applicable for the automotive industry, then they're on my website at jeff-smith.com. However, if you want to speak with me about being a mentor or helping you to write a book or helping you with a project, or you want to know more about the 11 steps of success and how to be more successful in your own life, I'm happy to meet with you on Zoom. So the way to do that, again, is to go to the website at jeff-smith.com. That's the easiest route.
Thank you so much, Jeff, for sharing your interview with us today. And there you have it, Jeff Smith. I want to say again that if you want to know more about the secrets of how success works, how business works, and how to avoid the big mistakes that they don't teach you, as Jeff say, at college and university, then you need to learn more about Jeff and his books. That's a place that you will want to go. Thank you again, Jeff, for sharing with us today, and we are so grateful to have you share your story.
My
Thank you.
absolute pleasure, James. Thank you for the invite.
Thank you.